Welcome back, everyone, to another one of CCA's interview, which is part of our outreach series. As you know, I'm Aaliyah Booker. I am a CCA intern and attend St. Peter's University in Jersey City, New Jersey. This will be my third year as a bio major at St. Peter's. As I mentioned previously, that my goal is to become a craniofacial surgeon. I too have a facial difference that came with a long road of surgeries, therapies, rehabilitation, but it never stopped me from achieving none of my goals. So I am joined today by Rasheera Dopson. Rasheera is a disability justice advocate, an author, scholar, public speaker, researcher, and influencer. As a champion of health equity and justice, her specific areas of research focus on exploring the intersectionality between race, gender, and disability. Rasheera shares both of her professional and lived experiences in living with a disability and chronic health conditions. Rasheera is also one of our guest speakers for our live stream event, Encounter the Power of Facial Difference, will be presented by us CCA kids, taking place a part of Craniofacial Awareness Month, which we are excited to have. But welcome, Rasheera. It is a pleasure to have you. Thank you for joining us and sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. It's nice to meet you, Aaliyah. This is my first time meeting you, so I'm really excited about this conversation.
Literally, like I already got my questions ready, so we're about to dive in right now.
Okay.
Okay. My first question is perhaps let's just start off like would you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background as a disability advocate?
Sure. I mean, gosh, my bio. I think it's
I know.
my bio is a mouthful, but I like to tell people during the day I'm a researcher. I work at Morehouse School of Medicine. I do a lot of research in the health equity space as well as health policy space. So that's kind of like what I call my day job. It pays the bills. And then my non-day jobs are all these stuff that I do outside of my job. I wear many hats. I wear the hat of an activist, an advocate. I wear the hat of a content creator, an influencer, a public speaker, organizer, blogger, podcaster, writer, all of that in between. So on a general week, I find myself taking on hats and putting off hats, depending what kind of week it is. But outside of all the different things that I do, I'm just a regular person. I enjoy traveling, trying new things. I have a really big sweet tooth, so I like sweets. So I'm always looking for, when I travel, I always looking for like bakeries and stuff I can try. I often laugh with my mom's like, you don't spend a lot of money, but you will spend like $10 on a cupcake. And I'm like, and will. I like trying new things. Korean food is my favorite food. My favorite color is pink. I love flowers. I'm a girly girl. And so, I'm just regular, I have to do that so people won't get too like, I don't want to say intimidated, but too caught up in the work that I do that they miss like who I am. I got started in a role of advocacy, not necessarily I woke up one morning and decided like I'm gonna advocate and change the world. But I really did it out of a place of need, out of advocating for my own health needs, my own social and mental health needs. And so that was kind of how I got pulled into this world of advocacy and now doing on a much larger scale. But it always started for me as something that I personally needed before I ever started trying to speak for a group of people. So I always like to say that because I think that is my fuel of why I do it, because anything that I advocate for people with disabilities in general, it's going to affect me directly because I am a person with a disability and I am a person with a facial difference. And so I'm not just advocating for these things out of pity or deciding that I want to do something new I don't have a personal connection to.
Right, right, most definitely. That's what I'm trying to do now. I finally found my purpose in life. It took me some time because I had to accept myself for who I am.
Mhm.
Go through that and everything. And being able to talk to you and share that connection with you is truly amazing.
Yeah.
You're doing so much for the world, and I thank you again. You're really helping us out. Like,
Oh, it's so sweet.
My next question for you is, so I first learned you about through social media and through my boss, Miss Khadija, and through media, of course. So one thing I have to say to you is you are out here doing your thing, Miss Rasheera. You are out here. You are doing everything. Like, I love it. Like, your platform on social media, amazing. You're really like influencing like everything that needs to be influenced to the world about our disability community and other people and special needs and schools and all of the stuff. So I really appreciate you. To back that up, my question for you is, what made you realize that this was your purpose in life to do, you know?
That's a great question. Kind of like what you said, it took you some time to find my purpose. It definitely took me a long time to find out what I was supposed to do in this world. I think I've always had a passion to help people,
Mhm.
but I never really connected it to my disability experience or my craniofacial condition until I was probably mid 20s. I think I was around 24, 25, because it was around 2016. Um, I just really began to do a lot of self-reflection and just really began to like ask God, like, why did you give me a facial difference? Like, why did I have to have all of these surgeries? I'm feeling like I'm never going to fit in. I'm never going to look like what other people think I should look like the standards of beauty. I'm never going to fit in. I'm never going to be that standard.
Right.
And so it was in asking that question that I just had to begin to really accept that although I am different, I'm still beautiful and I still have purpose. And so it was in 2016 that I launched the Beauty with a Twist. I really just started a blog and I started this series called Beauty with a Twist. And it was just basically going back in my life and bringing up all those memories that I had suppressed and ignored for so long about all the surgeries I had and all the hospitalizations and, some of the teasing, bullying I went through, and just really finding purpose in all of those experiences. Um, my pastor, he says all the time that, night has a purpose too, darkness, pain has a purpose. And so when we're able to find the purpose in our pain, that's when it doesn't become painful anymore. And so for me, even though the surgeries weren't all great, and even though they were physically and emotionally painful, even though I did experience a lot of trauma, I had to find the purpose in all of those experiences so I wouldn't be paralyzed in the pain. And I think a lot of times, especially people in our community, we can go through so many surgical experience, so much medical trauma, that we really become paralyzed in those experiences and we don't progress and we don't move forward because trauma, as my therapist has said, is an overwhelming experience, right? And so what I had to do is I had to look at those overwhelming experiences and I had to find what good can I get out of this? Outside of the pain, outside of the scars, outside of the surgeries, what is the goodness in this and how can I move my life forward? And so, like I said, I was able to find writing as very therapeutic for me. It was very cathartic and just being able to let out all that I had been feeling all of these years, all the feelings of rejection, all the feelings of abandonment, all the feelings of anger and just hopelessness that I had been really carrying around all of my life that I didn't feel safe enough to share with anyone because I grew up in a community where I was the only person in my classroom or at my church or in my home that had not only a disability but had a facial difference. And that can be really isolating, like a lot. Um, and only a person with a craniofacial condition will truly understand the level of isolation and stigma that people with facial differences face. So I think I will always have a soft place in my heart, even though I work in the more disability advocacy space. I always have a place in my heart for people with facial difference because I do have a facial difference, and I do understand that there's sometimes there seems to be more of a stigma. So, like I said, I just really began to create space just for myself, not with the intention of reaching people, not with the intention of trying to be seen or trying to become this famous social media person. I just really started it because it's something that I needed to do for me. I needed to let Rasheera know that you can write through this, that you can grow from this, that you can emerge, you can become something from your own experience. And it was me starting that journey of writing that then I began to feel comfortable sharing my story with others. Like I said, not for the sake of wanting to be seen or wanting attention, but I wanted to share my story with others so I can connect with other people. Up until the age I was 25, and actually attending my first CCA retreat, which was in 2018, 2017, 2018, I believe, I did not meet another person with golden heart syndrome or a craniofacial condition until I was 25 years old. So if you can imagine me going to a retreat full in a room full of 500 plus people, all with facial differences, it was overwhelming in a good way.
Yeah.
I remember going to bed that night, like just weeping, like tears are just coming from my eyes and hitting my pillow because I was like, wow, I find people who look like me. Like even, looking here at you, Aaliyah, like we look the same. And all golden heart patients, we all have very similar traits and characteristics. It's
Right.
not often that I meet other black girls with golden heart syndrome. I've met one other and she's actually here. She lives in Alabama now. But it's about you, her, and that's it.
I literally know you. That's it. It's crazy.
So even in this moment, just like creating space, that brings a level of healing, affirmation,
Right.
encouragement, knowing that there are other people out there with their experiences that you can share your story with. And even if it never goes around the world, knowing that you have that to keep in your heart, I think that's really important.
Very important. What's it called? When I first started CCA, I would say like this summer I actually connected with CCA, you know, try to build a foundation and build a better brand for myself and like my inner child from, because I would say like it took me a lot to like, overcome all my like challenges and struggles I did been through and all that stuff. So like finally accepting who you are and like, taking that, like, your like confidence and like basically finally like, accepting who you are is like the most powerful thing ever. Like you can like really override so many things and like I feel like this summer I finally found who I really was, who I really am, and like, I'm really like, trying to like make a difference for our community and like being able to be surrounded by amazing, beautiful community where it's like there's different people with different facial difference that I didn't even know that they're still out there. It's like a beautiful feeling and the connection is so unreal. So,
Aw.
so
I'm glad. That's very
yeah.
empowering.
Yeah.
Very empowering.
Okay. So my next question for you is one thing that excited me about speaking with you today is that you are also a Black woman with disabilities and who is proud of all of your identities. Do you ever feel the way do you ever feel that way when you meet other disabled women of color or women in general?
Yes, I think it's a must, and I think it's so necessary to our self-esteem, to our development just as women. That's why I created my podcast, the Womanhood and Disability Podcast, Beauty with a Twist podcast brand. I'm in the process of rebranding right now. So if you hear me using them interchangeably, it's because I'm switching over to just making it the Beauty with a Twist podcast. But that's why I created it, because I was like, I think being a woman is already an experience by itself.
Mm-hmm.
Being a woman with a disability is a different and a unique experience. And
Right.
I believe that we as women, we have to find a place to be able to connect and share our experiences with one another and create a level of sisterhood. Um, and being a Black woman with a disability is as unique as just being a non-Black or non-BIPOC, Black, Indigenous person of color. Being a person of color or a woman of color with a disability is a unique experience because women of color historically, we have faced higher levels of racism, discrimination, um, sexism, different things like that. People not only judge us because of our disabilities, people judge us because of the color of our skin, people judge us because of our gender. So I often have said that when I enter into a room, that is the opposite of me. If I enter into a space that is predominantly white, I'm not knowing if people are looking at me crazy because I'm Black, if people are looking at me crazy because I have a disability, or if people are looking at me crazy because I'm a woman. I like to call this effect people, individuals who are multiply marginalized. I know marginalized kind of has like a really negative connotation to it. But those who are part of that minority group who identify with different intersecting identities, our experiences are very unique. And so I'm very much a strong advocate in creating community and creating spaces for women of color, specifically with disabilities, because um, it's not really talked about. When we're in disability spaces, primarily those spaces are white.
Mhm.
And then even in female disability spaces, a lot of their spaces are white.
Yeah.
And so, but women, Black women, we're judged on our hair, our hairstyles. We're judged on how we're built, our shapes, our butts, our hips. We're judged on everything. And then to add disability on top of that, it just creates another barrier and challenge. We're often told that we're too loud or too aggressive, too ghetto, we have to be the perfect Black one. All of these stigmas that we deal with all the time. And so I really like to encourage other women of color, especially with disabilities, how to connect with other women. Like I said, to build that sisterhood, to build that alliance, to build that safe space where you can just say, hey, you know what, today it was really hard being a woman, or it was really hard being a Black woman, and I felt judged, or I just need someone to talk to who understands what this is like. And so I'm definitely, I met someone yesterday, another influencer, and she's a Black woman with a disability. And, that was very empowering, because it's like the more that you grow your network and the more that you start to say, like, there is a lot of us out here. Like, I don't know why all of us are feeling so alone all the time, but it's just a matter of us getting into a space and connecting with each other. And when we connected with each other, we're just like, we're literally all dealing with the same thing. Like,
You know?
so it's like, it makes it empowering. And like I said, it's affirming to your identity and to just how you navigate through the world, letting you know that you're not alone, but there are people who are with you, who are supporting you, who are in your corner, and who understand like life is hard, it's challenging, and it can be challenging because of a lot of racism and ableism that we face in our society.
Yeah, yeah. From what I see online, you have your own podcast called Womanhood and Disability, which I totally love, which is available on many platforms. Um, you basically explained, like, but can you thoroughly explain to us more about it and what made you decide to do a podcast?
Yeah, so like I said, I started the Beauty with a Twist brand through blogging, just writing. I'm a writer at heart. I think I always write. But podcasts, it's what's relevant right now. People want to listen, people want to hear your personality. And so when I was looking out at all the podcasts, there's so many different types of podcasts out there. I was like, I hadn't seen a podcast that centers around what it's like being a woman and what it's like living with a disability. And I was like, I think I have a unique perspective because I am a woman, I have a disability, and I'm Black. And so I have a really unique lens. And so I started just in my apartment, in my little studio apartment. I started recording like in my closet because, apartments can be loud sometimes. And, I had to get to the most quiet space, which happened to be my closet at the time. And I just started recording voice notes on my phone and uploading the voice note audio file and creating content episodes and putting it all together. Like, I did not go to school for any of this, like, but it was just something that I really thought that I wanted to do. And just kind of to get my voice and my story in, not only just my story, but the stories of so many other women that I had met who had, similar experiences, I brought on a few of my friends who are in the field, like my good friend, Dr. Kathleen Bogart. She's a professor in disability psychology, and we had a great conversation. Another one of my friends, Nicole Hilton, we had a conversation about community, and all of these people, some of them intersected in the disability facial difference community, and then some of them were just, everyday women who really weren't, who didn't necessarily have disabilities, but who were allies to the disability community. And I really just want to create kind of like in bridging that gap to saying that even if you are a woman without a disability, you can still listen to that podcast because there are so many experiences that intersect with non-disabled people. And so I'm really excited that we have season 3 coming out within the next few weeks or so, and we're just going to be bringing on new people, having more conversation, having dialogue about things that us as women go through that we deal with. So I'm really excited. So make sure you guys stay tuned. You can follow my podcast. You can download on Apple Podcasts. I believe on Spotify, Anchor platforms, Google Podcast. Most of all podcasting platforms you can find a podcast on.
Yes, we love to hear it. I would say like last week, no, not last week. I would say like 3 days ago, I was listening to your podcast. I believe it's episode 2, season 1. It's called Beautification.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was listening to it, I'm like, yo, and, I never know like somebody could actually have the same feelings like this. I'm like, this is intense. Like you connected on a deeper level. I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But I'm like, I finally found someone that I could actually connect to, which was like a surreal feeling ever. It was like so amazing to like even know that there's someone out there. So I thank you for that. And
oh, don't make me cry.
I thank you for that. And based on that, what is your own definition of beautification? If
Oh
you
man,
give a little insight of that little episode.
beautification is it's a process. I am a believer. I'm a person of faith, and one of my favorite scriptures is He gives us beauty for ashes. And that scripture basically talks about how God takes the bad things in our lives. He takes the broken things, and He takes us through this process in which He begins to make those broken things beautiful. And so I know that's kind of like what God did for me, that He took all the brokenness, He took all the trauma, He took all the pain that I was experiencing, and He attached purpose to it. Like I said, it took me a really, really, really long time to get there. Like I said, I was 25 when I started coming out with Beauty with a Twist. That means the first 25 years of my life, I felt like I was just like in darkness. Of course, I have a great family. I was raised by a single mom, but there are some things that your mom cannot do. There's some things that your family cannot do, and that's because they may even though they empathize, they really don't know how to walk in your shoes because they've never been there.
Yeah.
And so for me, I kind of had to turn to my faith and kind of ask God to show me who I was in me, show me why you decided to give me a really, really, really rare condition. And I'm not talking about like, people hear about sickle cell and, more common types of disabilities. Nobody's heard of golden heart syndrome.
Nobody.
Like every time I go to a new doctor, they always have to like Google it. And I'm just like, all right. It's so frustrating. Nobody's heard of golden heart syndrome. And so the beautification process is just like God taking those ashes and turning it into beauty. That's why I came with Beauty with a Twist, that I may not be the world standard of beautiful because I have a crooked face and I have a deformed ear. I don't like using the word deformed, but I mean for medical purposes, I have a deformity, right? I have all these scars across my body. I've had 103 surgeries. I don't know anyone else who's had that many surgeries. None of my friends have had even one surgery. They maybe had like one or two, getting your wisdom teeth pulled out might be a surgery for them. But I'm talking about like I've had facial reconstructive surgery, like pain wrenching type surgeries, paralyzing hospital experiences. And I'm like, and I'm supposed to be like okay with this.
Right. That's great. What we've been through is intense. Yeah.
It's intense. I always tell people I've had, if you calculate 103, I've had 100, I had 103 surgeries by the time I was 27.
Wow.
If you multiply that, or if you do the math, that means that for 27 years of my life, I was having 4 surgeries a year. I have had many surgeries than I've actually in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And I was like, that in math, you would call that a disproportionate ratio because the math does not make sense, right? How am I supposed to make sense of that? And it's like you have to stop trying to make sense of it and just accept it for what it is.
Right.
Just accept it will never make sense. It will never be perfect. It will never look like the world standard of beauty or what they consider an experience. But it is my experience and I'm gonna embrace it and I'm gonna walk in it and I'm have to be okay with that. And I realize that when you really, really become okay with that, everyone else around you will become okay with that.
Right.
So that's the beautification process. It's just like really coming to the end of yourself and realizing this is who I am in my skin, in my body, in my condition. And I'm not making apologies for it anymore. I'm not asking for questions that I may never get.
Right.
I'm just going to be okay with sometimes not having the answer.
Right. 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 Oh, I love it. Love it. Yes. Um, my next question for you is you're also an author and you published 2 books, Beauty with a Twist and In Herself. Um, can you give us a tease of what they're about a little bit?
Yeah, so Beauty with a Twist is really just like an in-depth of my personal story. Now that I think about it, I'm like, man, I maybe put like too much in that book. Because I went in on that book. But it's just an in-depth picture of my personal story, what it was like to grow up with my condition and the type of family that I had,
Yeah.
coming from a lot of different family dysfunctionality, good things, bad things, and sometimes things got terrible. But
Yeah.
also my faith was a lot in my book and how my faith was really like a key part of me being able to process and come out of all of the brokenness and just come to a more whole place. And then In Herself is just like an ebook that I created for young women as they are coming to the point of, growing in their self-esteem and in their image. I just created a short guide on what does that look like. I have a chapter talking about jealousy, and how sometimes when we are dealing with a lot of insecurities, and I can only say this from personal experience, we do experience jealousy. It's not something to demonize, but it's just a natural human emotion. And it comes from a place of insecurity. And so I talk about when you're dealing with jealousy, first having to identify where does that come from and why you're jealous. And in my own personal life, I had to really accept, realize, and work through that I may have been jealous of other girls who were considered pretty or who were considered popular, not necessarily because I wanted who they were, but I felt like who they were, I could never become. And so, how that was really like a place for me that I just really had to work out and kind of just reshift the narrative a little bit so I can have a more healthy perspective. And so I encourage, Beauty with a Twist is really feminine name, but men can read it too. um, but I will say a lot of my content and target audience is geared towards women and girls. That is my passion. That's what I know and who I know that I'm called to. I cannot speak to the experience of being a man because I'm not a man. but I can definitely speak to the heart of what it's like to be a woman with a disability. And so I encourage all my young ladies and older ladies too. If you're reading, I believe you will be blessed and encouraged by it, and that everyone can find something in it if you're looking for something to be found.
Yes, I'm definitely gonna get my coffee as soon as possible. Don't worry. And I'll get the other one, the inner self. You said the inner self is the journaling one, right? It's like
It's like an ebook, so you can journal. I don't have journal. I might need to give me an idea there. You might need to bring it back, but
yeah.
yeah, it's an ebook. It's a short ebook. I believe it's like 50 pages, but you can get through it really quickly. And I think it just gives a lot of practical steps
Yeah.
on, how you can just walk out that process of your journey.
Yeah, most definitely. I love this. And how long did it take for you to write the book? Because like I know like writing stuff like that's time, and like you have to process to other people and all that stuff. How was that? Like.
Yeah, so I was writing this book like for 10 years. I started, and it took me longer because one thing about writing, especially for writing like a personal story,
Yeah.
as you're writing, you're processing, you're having to go back through all those memories, all those stories. And
Right.
so, like I said, it was very much cathartic and healing for me. But as I was writing, I was healing. And so that takes time. So it took me, I started writing my story in high school, just as like, I'm gonna just write my story. But I didn't feel released to come to the end of that story
Mhm.
and share it with the rest of the world until 2020 when I released my book. So
Wow. Dang, 10 years.
now it doesn't have to take everybody else that long, but I had a lot of just
Right. I know.
I had a lot of stuff to process through. So
Yeah.
I took my time writing it. It wasn't short. I took my time doing it.
You should. Most definitely. You got me thinking. I might want to write a book myself. Just so
You should, chapter by chapter. It doesn't have to, like I said, it won't have to take you 10 years, but I just know the specific journey it was more than just writing, it was healing for me.
Yeah. I think that'll be the same for me. I gotta take my time. Yeah, definitely. Um, on to the next question. Encounter is next week, and you're the exact person that we need for this. Someone who is wise, straightforward, ambitious, confident, and fearless. Do you think you could give us a sneak peek of what you'll be preaching to us on Thursday?
Preaching. Oh man, Encounter. I'm really excited. I get to share that platform, of course, with the amazing David Roche and a good friend of mine, colleague, Dr. Jasmine Gray. And so I'll be coming from the place of equity. I do a lot of work in that space, and how equity is just really is taking equality to the next level. And
Yeah.
it's just making sure that all of us have what we need in the way that we need it. So I'll be talking about that. Um, and then I know we have a panel as well. So I want you guys to tune into that panels because I love answering questions. I can give like, fancy speeches about like all these high level topics and whatever like that. But I actually like really engaging with people like through questions and
Yeah.
getting really to know like, what are y'all thinking? Like,
Know?
before the pandemic, I go ahead.
The feedback, and getting like,
Yeah, I like the feedback. I like to engage with people because it's like sometimes you're thinking like, oh yeah, this is great. And then people are like, that's not even what I want to talk about. So,
yeah, I heard a lot of people like that. Yeah.
so I want you guys to definitely tune in for Encounter, engage with us. Me and Jasmine, Dr. Jazz. Well, I call her Jazz. I don't call her Dr. Jazz, but she's my friend.
Yeah.
But me and Dr. Jazz, I like to call us like the dynamic duo because when her and I get started, we just kind of start bouncing off each other. So get ready for that synergy too.
Wait, what's it called? I'm supposed to have her. She's coming on here soon, so I can't wait.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't wait for Encounter. It's gonna be.
You should get us all. You should get us all on here. We'll have a blast. That should be your next episode.
My last question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is afraid to use their voice as a weapon?
I will preface this by saying I think a lot of people see what I do and they think they have to do the exact thing I do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have to audibly use your voice and for people to hear it to be a weapon. I think being a weapon is just being yourself and knowing that that's enough. Everyone isn't called to the level of advocacy or sharing their story
Mm-hmm.
at the way that I do, and that's okay.
Right.
I think a lot of times people, especially in the disability community, we feel pressure to share our story.
Right.
And I know I definitely feel pressure, and sometimes I have to be like, I don't necessarily want to use my voice in that way because it's my voice.
Right.
One of the things that I had to do was take ownership of my story and my voice.
Right.
And what that looks like is knowing when to share it and when to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's knowing that even if I never said anything else, that I still have a voice
Mm-hmm.
and that my voice is valuable. When you value your voice, that's when it becomes a weapon. It's not necessarily in you using it, but it's understanding your value and your identity that's connected to the voice that becomes a weapon. So I know when I share my story, I'm not doing it because a news television station wants to feature me or for me to be heard. I understand that at the end of the day, that even if I was never on TV, even if I never did a podcast, even if I never shared my story out loud to anyone else, I still value my own story and I still value my own voice. And I know that I have a voice and I have a weapon and I choose to use it wisely.
Right.
Um, so that's what I would give. I know that's kind of an unorthodox response, but I always like to say this because you have some people with disabilities who may not like sharing the story with everyone. They don't want everybody in their business, but that's okay because you even take ownership in knowing I don't have to tell people I'm strong in order to know that I'm strong,
Right.
you know? And so I always like to know how to use your weapon and know what your weapon is for, know what your voice is for. And even if it's just validating your own experience within your family or your community, that's enough.
Right. And I love how you phrase it, like, like your voice doesn't always have to be a weapon. Like it's okay to be quiet at some times. And the reason I asked you this question is because when I was younger, I was very, very quiet and very shy and very to
Mhm.
myself because I wasn't, you know, I guess I wasn't like, very like comfortable with myself. And I guess it happened based off of others' reactions, opinions, and judgments from that. So I was very reserved. So like if anyone tried to talk to me, I went mute. So growing up and like, finding my voice and finding like, I could stand up for myself. I am
Mhm.
confident, like, I could do this. And like seeing people like you, like, with the disability and the facial difference helps me be more confident and share my story.
Yeah.
I know I'm saying like thank you so many times, but like literally, you really helped me, like, be more who I am, like, make me want to do more stuff in life. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it yourself.
Yeah.
You found your voice and you know how to stand up for yourself. And that's all that matters, you know? Knowing your own voice and knowing the value in your voice. I think that's your weapon. Knowing your value is your weapon.
Right.
You know? Um we stand up for ourselves because we know that we are worthy to be protected.
Right.
And so that's a whole other conversation for another day. But that's all I'm gonna say on that one right there.
Well, you can ask my family now. Like, they was like, "Oh, Aaliyah's like the most talkative person ever. She don't shut up. Like, she just talk, 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 talk." 'Cause I did not talk, and now like I talk all the time. Like I'm like a whole different person. I'm me. Like I'm a,
Yeah,
So it's so good to be in this position and be like so accepting and loving of yourself. It's like the best feeling in the world.
it's
So,
the best. And as you get older and as you continue to be on this journey
yeah,
of self acceptance, it only gets better.
it really
It
does.
only gets better.
It really does. I just got my new hair color. I'm feeling myself. I'm
Yes,
like,
I'm here for it.
yes. Um, Thank you so much, Rasheera, for joining us. It has been a pleasure chatting with you today. If our audience wants to know and learn more about you, where can they follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Instagram at Rasheera Dopson, Twitter on Rasheera Dopson. If you're a professional, LinkedIn at Rasheera Dopson. I'm not hard to find at all. And I am on TikTok too. I probably should promote that more.
So yeah,
I'm on TikTok. I'm trying to figure out how to use TikTok, but I'm a little old, guys. I can't keep up with all the trends and all the different quirkiness of TikTok. So, if you like social media and you would like to assist me with this to this audience, I would greatly take you and make you part of my team. But I am on TikTok too. So
show you some stuff like the trends and everything. Yeah, just actually, I got you. I'm always on TikTok. Always.
yes, it's the younger generation. I can't do it.
It was great for promoting. I love it. Great. Again, thank you so much. Before we go, if you want to be entertained, empowered, and informed, join us for our encounter, The Power of Facial Difference. As I mentioned before, is a live stream event presented by us, taking place as a part of Craniofacial Awareness Month, which will be held Thursday, September 29th, 2022, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Central Time. But again, Rasheera, we appreciate you sharing your time with us, and I look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
So, see you guys later, and tune in for the next interview. I'll have my guests. My guests be popping, so don't miss out. Thank you.